Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
And we're fortunate today to have the association of this great Shrutakirti Prabhu, who is Prabhupada's personal secretary for many years, and who's a icon within ISKCON for having been faithful to Prabhupada for so many years. He's an author. He travels all over the world speaking about Prabhupada and his pastimes. And he's also, I'm happy to say, call him a dear friend. And thank you very much, Shruta Prabhu, for taking your time to come up here and give us your association. Please give him a warm welcome. Is this right?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Pacharni Near Visesa Samati Well, first I want to thank my dear friend and godbrother Vaisesika Prabhu and his wife Nirakula Devi, who I've known for 40 years. And for this opportunity, I've been here now 6 weeks, so this is the first time I'm speaking here in Srila Prabhupada's room, so thank you for that opportunity. We were here last week. We don't have a lot of time, we have a little time. I'll try to, since we're here in Prabhupada's quarters, I wanted to speak about Srila Prabhupada's in his quarters here. This is a very, as he said, very special and sacred place. And it's a place I became very familiar with back in 1973 and 74 and 75 when I was here with Srila Prabhupada. I first came early 1973 when Prabhupada lived in his Bhajan Kutir at the very front of the property. That was the only building on this land, this ISKCON land, was that little grass shack, bamboo shack. And he stayed there for some days, making his plans here for this, what's called the Lotus Building. And if you look out here now, you'll see the Lotus Building. Of course, when it went up, this was the very first building, and it didn't have that little extension, a Panchatat extension, which now comes up to these walls. And Prabhupada, it was very evident coming here to Mayapur how much Srila Prabhupada loved to be in Mayapur, and also how much, how happy he was to have his place. If you look through Prabhupada's letters, you'll see that he was requesting many of his godbrothers to help him get his piece of land here in Mayapur, especially for his Western disciples. You know, he wanted them to be able to come here and train them up. And in order to do that, he wanted his property here. So coming here, I came here with him as brahmachari, also as grahasta, since I was with him for 2.5 years, over a span of 3 years. And there's a lot of nice things that happen here. When Prabhupada stayed here at that time, of course, this room here was a sitting room, and it was a little different. You'll see pictures of, next to Prabhupada, there's this beautiful teakwood carving where all the books are now. It was a carving of Radha Krishna and trees, everything was there. And it was smeared in sandalwood oil. So Prabhupada, as he said, it is as good as sandalwood, he said, because it had taken on the sandalwood oil. And so when I was here, that was there at that time. Later on, they had a picture of Prabhupada with all his godbrothers from a ceremony downstairs. Now they have Srila Prabhupada's books. Maybe Vaish had an influence in that, I'm not sure. But it's possible. But yeah, these were very favorite of Srila Prabhupada. We know his books. But coming here, Prabhupada's sitting room, and before you leave, you're all going to have to see Prabhupada's bedroom. I was going to walk. I didn't realize how many devotees would be here. I was going to have a little walkabout and show you different things that happened with Srila Prabhupada here. But you can all have a look before you leave. So when we were first here, there were not a lot of devotees here. So this whole floor it was like Prabhupada's floor. And this room there is where we stayed, his entourage, secretary, servant. And I was Prabhupada's servant. I wasn't his secretary, although everyone's called a secretary now in the service of Prabhupada. Down in Florida, when I went to the college campuses in the temple there, they don't say servant because no one likes to hear that word, you're a servant. So they say assistant, because it doesn't go well with the college community, the idea of servitude. But I was very much just a servant. And so Prabhupada's bedroom was there. Then at the end of the hall, you'll see it says, ladies or gents? I guess the gents' toilets. Well, that whole thing, that was Prabhupada's bathroom. But there wasn't running water, so it was a little different than things are now. And there was, of course, no hot water, and we just used buckets. And we stayed there. And we took prasadam right outside Prabhupada's room, right there. And very often, Srila Prabhupada would come out chanting japa. He'd have his hand in his bead bag, and he would be looking to see what he would be eating in a very fatherly way, to see that we were getting nice prasadam. And out there once, we were being served by Bengali brahmachari, young boys. And Prabhupada said something to him in Bengali, and then he walked away, and then he came back and he was giving me, I said, what did Prabhupada say? He said, he told me to give you lots of prasadam. And he did, and it was not a problem. I like to eat lots of prasadam. It didn't always have a very good result, but nonetheless, we were all eating lots of prasadam there, and here it was very tasty. And when Prabhupada came here, as I said, he really loved Mayapura, and it was something special. I'll tell you one thing I noticed. You also have to go out here. Prabhupada would walk outside, and he was same thing. We'd come in, and I'd have his bags, and Prabhupada walks up to the window, and again he's looking out there. He didn't look out there. Always looked out there. He would just look, out that window. And I was a grahasta now. And he said, Shrutakirti Maharaj, how do you like it here in Mayapura? And of course I would, very nice, Srila Prabhupada. It was actually for me, India was always very, very difficult, but you couldn't say anything else. Because when Prabhupada said anything to you, everything was wonderful, everything was very nice. So even if you were standing in fire, he said, how are you? You'd say, fine. What is this fine? Well, it's fine, I'm in front of you, so there are no problems. That's what it was to be in front of Srila Prabhupada. There were no problems. But here so many nice things happen. And this, of course, was the place and the bathroom at the end. If you all go, if you have time today or any other day when you're here, you have to walk around this place and feel Prabhupada. His lotus feet, they were all around here. Every step, every stone, every piece of marble. You can be sure Srila Prabhupada was walking here, talking here, chanting here. So this was the place where Prabhupada was sitting, and he had some disciples. He was giving darshan, and I was having to fill up buckets of water for the bathroom for Prabhupada. So when he ever used, there were always 2 buckets of water there because there was no running water. So I went to the bathroom there, it says gents, and I walked in, and I'm carrying a bucket, and the second door on the left, I opened up to put a bucket there, and there was a snake in the bathroom. It was a cobra. And it wasn't a huge one. It was maybe 6 or 8 feet long. And of course, I just, dropped the bucket and ran out. And the first person I saw was Bhavananda. Now, I don't know if you know Bhavananda well. Bhavananda's very expressive. And I said, Maharaj, I said, there's a snake in Prabhupada's bathroom, because I didn't want to come in and disturb anything in here. So I told him, so I thought he was in charge. If you look at him still, you see he has that. He's a very in charge kind of person. So I told him. Of course, what happened next was funny, because he opens the door. Prabhupada, there's a snake in your bathroom. And that's what I was trying to avoid, was doing that. So he went and did it even, more demonstrative than I would have done it. And everyone's sitting, and Prabhupada just sitting very calmly, And then you have to understand the times. This was 1975, 1974. And so I said, how did a snake get up here? So immediately, it became Bhavananda's, well, maybe it was the Gaudiya Math. Maybe they planted it. Because we knew they were all envious of Prabhupada. That was, Prabhupada's godbrothers were critical and envious. So we were saying, well, maybe someone in the Gaudiya Math planted it in the bathroom. And then it was, well, or maybe it was the communist, because this place is always, it was the communist or the government, because they thought we were CIA. We had all these conspiracy theories of why this snake was in the bathroom. So then Prabhupada gets up, and we all get up, and there's like maybe 6 or 8, 10. And Prabhupada's just very calm, and now he's standing on the veranda over, not in the bathroom, but outside the bathroom, a few feet down, and he's just chanting, but all the devotees are just going wild, just going crazy. And then it was, there were 2 devotee brothers, big, tall guys, Yadavacharya, and his brother's name, I can't think of his brother's name. They were our Kshatriyas. They were the Mayapura Kshatriyas, because by this time in most temples we had a security crew, and they were our Kshatriyas, because different temples were under various kinds of attacks. So here in Mayapur they had these 2. So we called them. No one did anything. No one wanted to go in because there was a snake in the bathroom. So, we called them, and he came, Rasaparayana, that was his name, Rasaparayana. He came in, and he had a knife. And Prabhupada just sitting, chanting, and while all this was going on, he said, so much, one snake, he said. It's so much commotion over one snake, And he went in, and of course everybody's kind of watching him with him and behind him, and he goes into the bathroom, and he actually got the one snake. It started to go down the pipes, which is probably how it got up. It wasn't the Gaudiya Math, it wasn't the commies. It was just it just wandered up the pipes for some reason. Maybe water, I don't know, but. He got to it, and there were 2 of them. So the one he got, the other got away, but the one he got and kind of cut it up. So then we all came back into the room, and we're sitting down. Now everyone you can imagine is very hearts are beating and blood's flowing, and Prabhupada's sitting, and just like, it was like being at the campfire, and then Prabhupada starts. He said, you hear that sound? What sound? He said, that's the snake bird. So now Prabhupada's in, he's just taunting everyone, If you read Bhagavatam, you probably read about the snake bird, right? So Prabhupada said at the end of its life, the snake grows wings. sometimes. And what happens, he said, in the mate, just like the snake was killed, so the one with it is its mate. So that image of the person that kills it is in the eye, right, of the snake. So then the mate will spend its entire life searching out that person and poison, kill you. So Prabhupada's telling us, and he said that sound, that's the snake bird. So like, we're all like, we're all young, you know, and very impressionable, especially from the words of Srila Prabhupada. And he was very serious, you know. It wasn't like he was laughing. He was saying, you know, you gotta watch out for this. So then, all the devotees are a little afraid because there's a snake on the loose, you know, and he's after us. So the rest of the day goes by. So in the evening, giving Prabhupada massage in his room here. Now, I'm in, and of course being with Prabhupada in Mayapura was probably one of the most wonderful things, and very peaceful. Being in Prabhupada's room at night, it became, everything just added on to what a wonderful, peaceful environment it was. And it's what I like, one of the things I like so much being with Srila Prabhupada is he was very peaceful. You would think, you know, maybe there was lots of activity, and there was, but when he was in his room, it was just overwhelmingly wonderful place to be, and you felt peaceful. You know, you just felt transcendently very happy. At least I did. It was quiet. He was quiet. It wasn't, you know, a lot of things going on. Wasn't all this excitement and passion. And it was very calm to be around Srila Prabhupada. And the height of calmness was being with Prabhupada in his bedroom at night, which that's when I would massage his legs, massage his feet, massage his back. So I'm in there and I'm massaging Prabhupada, and I'm feeling very peaceful and happy. And Prabhupada, I'm massaging, and he said, "So?" He said, "How is everyone?" He said, "Are they worried?" He was doing that to us. He was, you know, he was playing with us. So he was getting everyone worked up and concerned. He said, "So is everyone, are they afraid?" He said, "Of the snake?" And I laughed. And he said, "You?" He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." I said, "I'm not worried." He says, "Good." He said, "Krishna wants to kill us." He said, "No one can save you." He said, "If Krishna wants to save you, of course, no one can kill you," he said. And I said, "Yes." And then I laughed. I said, "Well, actually, Prabhupada," I said, "in our room next door, there were 3 of us at that time. It was myself in there, Prajumna, and Nitai Das. So the 3 of us were sleeping in there, and we just slept on the floor on a straw mat. And sometimes with a chadar over us or something." And I said, "Well, actually," I said, "this evening," I said, "we were getting prepared for bed, and I said, Nitai and I put our mats down on the floor, and Prajumna came, and he put his mat in between ours." I said, so he figured if a snake came in, he would be safe. And Prabhupada laughed. He laughed. He said, "Yes, very smart." He said, "One of my godbrothers," he said, "just told me a story a little while ago." He said, "There was one family, local village family," he said, the old Brahmin family, and somehow or other they offended one of the local priests or something. He said, and that priest cursed them that their youngest child would be bitten by a snake. He said, now they all lived in the village. They all lived in just a one-room little, mud cow dung hut. He said, and there's like 6 of them. He said, so they were very worried for their child. He said, so they put the child in the middle, just like that. He put the little baby in the middle and they all slept around. He said, but the snake came in and bit the child. And then he looked at me. you never knew Prabhupada when he was saying something, if, you know, because everything Prabhupada said was a fact, but you don't know what kind of a fact, you know, it was, if he was just, so then he just laughed. He said, anyway, he said, we'll be fine. I said, yes, Prabhupada. But Prajumna, he was very safe, very smart. That's why he was called Panditji. He had extra intelligence. He was a Pandit, so he knew where to sleep. So then, and now around this time, there's one of Prabhupada's godbrothers. This place was also just like you hear. I don't know anywhere in the world where sound carries like it does in Mayapura. I think you see all these doors, they have these stops. Because Prabhupada said two things Prabhupada didn't like, really didn't like. One of them, and they were both here, mosquitoes and slamming doors. He said it cut his heart, cut his, and doors, because the breezes were always coming and they didn't have these things in the windows and in the doors, they were always slamming, slamming. So then they put all these in, these stoppers and shutters, and in the doorways. That was, Prabhupada had to have that. But the sound carried very good. So festival time, 1975, big Mayapur festival, GBC meetings, and now 75, the place was filled. All downstairs, upstairs were all guest quarters. So Prabhupada's room, Prabhupada's bedroom, and those two rooms were all the servants' quarters. And then after that, it started to be all the godbrothers and different sannyasis, GBCs. So one afternoon he rings the bell, and I'm so right there, so you hear the bell, they come in, offer obeisances, and he said, tell them to be quiet, because you could hear the talking. He said, all I hear, he said, all talking nonsense. He said, gossip. He said, everyone gossiping. Now what happened, we come together once a year, so they don't see anyone, you know, for so many months. This would be the one time of the year you would see people you knew from service, this place, that place. So you would talk. But Prabhupada didn't like to talk. And he said, simply gossiping. And he looked at me, he said, this gossip, he said, destroys Krishna consciousness. He said it destroys it. Very, very. And he told me this 3 different years. He told me the same thing, because he could hear, just outside of his windows, he could hear people talking. And he didn't like it. He said, tell them to be quiet. He said, tell them to chant Hare Krishna. So now, I was just young. You know, I considered myself much younger than many of these people who were like 5 years older than me, in big positions, big services. And so I had to go there and say that. So I just said, Prabhupada's trying to work. He said, please, keep quiet. He said, I didn't even mention the part about gossip. I just couldn't do it. I should have, but I didn't. So then it quieted down. Another time, devotee was walking back and forth outside there, chanting, you know, chanting very loudly his japa. And I would sit out there at the stairway, and I said, Prabhu, I said, Prabhupada's quarters, I said, maybe you should chant a little quieter. And he looked at me like, you're telling me, you know, I'm chanting, Hare Krishna, I'm chanting. And he just kept walking back and forth. So then, of course, a few minutes later, the bell rings. Who is that chanting out there? Tell him if he wants to chant, go chant in front of the deities. He wants to chant so loud. He can go chant in front of the deities. So then I went back out there. Prabhupada said. So then he went down and just couldn't understand. But so then one day, Prabhupada's godbrother comes to see Prabhupada. His sannyasi godbrother. He was younger, some years younger. And he would come regularly because it was a short walk down the road. And he would start talking to Prabhupada, and this is going on. And one day he came in, and Prabhupada had a picture of his Guru Maharaj on his desk. And he said, some of your godbrothers are criticizing, you know. He said, and they say when you come down the road, you don't even stop at the yoga pit. You don't even stop at Prabhupada's Samadhi, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Samadhi. He said, you just come right to your land. And it was true. Prabhupada didn't go out. He didn't go into the temple. In fact, when I was with him, he would be coming in the ambassador car, and he would tell the driver, stop. And Prabhupada would put his head down, and he would offer his respects. He didn't get out of the car. And then he would continue to hear to his place, his temple. So he said that to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada just banged his fist on the desk, and he pointed. He said, I am always with my spiritual master. He said, I'm never without him, because that's all he was. He was always with his spiritual master. Everything he did was based on his spiritual master's instruction. There wasn't a necessity of making a show in some way. And the fact was, there were difficulties at that time with his godbrothers, and it was very intense here in Mayapura. So then he left. So Prabhupada rang the bell, and he said, if Maharaj comes to see me, he said, I don't want to see him. He said, all he does is gossip. And Prabhupada used this word gossip. He didn't say prajalpa, he always said gossip. You know, because it's a very special word. He said, all he does is gossip. And he says, this is going on in this mandir, this mat, and this is going on in this place, and godbrothers are doing this, and the disciples are doing this. He said, I don't care to hear any of these things. Just like what he heard from his disciples talking amongst themselves, this, that. He said, I don't want to hear these things. He said, if he came and he talked philosophy, he said, if Chaitanya Charitamrita, he said, if he talked like that, he said, or if he talked about preaching activities, he said, I'd be very eager to sit with him and talk. He said, but simply gossip. He said, so if he comes, he said, I don't want to see him. He said, don't let him in. Now imagine, he's telling that to me. I was a 23-year-old boy, and this was Sannyasi, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, Sannyasi. So of course I just nodded, said, yes, Prabhupada, maybe you do want to shut down. So I just said, yes, Prabhupada. So the very next day, it's in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so, and Prabhupada's resting in his room. And I'm standing right at the stairs, the top of the stairs. That's where I sat, like a guard. And here he comes walking up the steps. As soon as I see him, I'm like, oh no. I have to say something to this person, Prabhupada's godbrother.
Starting.
The parade starting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as
Thank you very much.
And fortunately, Prabhupada was resting. So I said, oh, he said, I'm here to see Maharaj. And I said, oh, okay. I said, but he's resting. I said, when he's resting, he said, no one should disturb him. And he looked at me like, he said, anytime I want, I can come and see him. So I'm there, yes, that's, I understand. I said, but he's resting now. I said, so I'm not able to do anything. So this is going, and he's just very agitated to this young, Malecha boy, this white so-called Vaishnava is telling him what he can't do. And just then, and we're standing there, and the bedroom door opens, and Prabhupada standing there, and he just got up from a nap, and he's like fixing his dhoti. He's got no shirt on, and he just looks totally just like, you know, wonderful, like Prabhupada, like only Prabhupada could look, you know, and his dhuti's all wrinkled and stuff, but he's just, and he sees him, and he said, "Oh, Maharaj," he said, "Come on, come sit down." He said, "I'll be right there." And he walks to the bathroom. So now Maharaj and I, we both walk in this very place and sit down, and he's just like, you know, he just couldn't wait. And I'm thinking, oh, here, you know, this is going to be good. He just couldn't wait for Prabhupada to come back from the bathroom. He's just very upset with me. And we're just sitting here. And Prabhupada again comes in, big smile on his face, and oh, it's so nice to see you again. And he looks and he said, "Yes," he said, "but your disciple here, he was telling me I couldn't see you. He wasn't letting me in." And Prabhupada looked at me. He said, "I told you, whenever Maharaj comes, let him in." I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." And he said, "All right, you can go." So then he went off. So this was Prabhupada. You know, he could say whatever he wanted to us. We didn't know. But whatever he said, we just loved it. And when he did that, I felt so happy that Prabhupada said that to me, because I knew what he had said, and he knew what he had said. But this was his godbrother, and for good or for bad, it was his godbrother, and so he was going to try to lift him up somehow, and he tolerated all the other things, you know. So it's a very good example. I always say when talking about Prabhupada, it's so wonderful, but Prabhupada wanted us to become like him. Not just that we just looked at him and said, "Dude, this is Prabhupada, Prabhupada." We're supposed to become, you know, follow that example. This is a Vaishnava. So Prabhupada showed us in everything he did how to deal in every situation. Yes, Prabhupada. So then he went out and joined us. Prajumna could eat. He was skinny like anything, Prajumna, but he could eat more than all of us, you know, right? Our Prajumna Prabhu, very wonderful, dear God brother Prajumna. So Prabhupada, and then he would do that. He did that with me on a few occasions. If he would see you, he said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "You look a little thin." He went like this, you know? I said, "Oh," I said, "it was Janmashtami and Vyas Puja." I said, "I didn't eat very much, and I, you know, trying to cut down." And he said, "How are you going to massage me if you don't eat?" He said, "How are you going to do your service?" So he would put these things that sometimes seem a little contradictory. He said, "You have to be strong," he said. "You have to massage me every day." He said, "Take as much as you want." He said, "Eat prasadam." I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." So this is, certainly in the beginning, this is our business. Eat lots of prasadam, do lots of service. In time, when you get to be our age, you can't eat and sleep anyway. So don't worry, it'll happen. It'll happen on its own accord. This morning, horrible. I woke up 3 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I went to Mangalarti. This is, all these things will happen. All right, everyone.
One more.
Okay, one more here. Mayapur? Or anywhere? Something?
Anywhere.
Something? Hmm?
Prabhupada's scar.
Hmm?
How he got scar.
Ah. Yeah, or I could tell about the chatter. I was going to bring Prabhupada's chatter here that he gave to me, but I didn't, I forgot. So we'll have to get together. I'm leaving Monday and I'll be back in a week. When I get back, if you want, we can have one more meeting and I'll bring this chatter. But I'll tell you this story because it started here. It took 3 months, but it started here. And Prabhupada's sitting behind his desk, and one of my godbrothers, Swami, also Guru Kripa Maharaj, he decided he wants Prabhupada's chatter because it would look just like this chatter, and it had been around the world many, many times for many years. Prabhupada, I don't know when he got it. He had it when I was with him in 1972 and I see pictures going back a few years before that. So he had it a long time. Anyway, Guru Kripa decided he wanted it. So he hatched a plan. And Prabhupada's sitting here, and I'm sitting here, and a few other devotees, and he comes in with this beautiful embroidered santouche. Anyone know what santouche is? There's cashmere, and then there's your pashmina, then there's santouche. This is like the most elegant and expensive cashmere that you can have, and it only comes from the Himalayan goats, which are like way up, and it's only from their chin hairs or something. But it's very, very costly, very expensive. And of course it's, you know, so you can, the whole chadar you start and you can pull it through a ring. You know, that's what it's known for. So it's very light, very fine, but also very, very warm because it's on these mountain goats in the Himalayas. So he got him this chadar, and it's embroidered also. So at that time, I don't even know what it cost, but it was expensive. So we're sitting down, and he comes in and puts it on Prabhupada's table, right there. Prabhupada, I got this for you. Because he knows this was, Prabhupada would generally exchange things. And he puts it there. And Prabhupada said, oh, thank you. And he grabbed this chadar, and right there, he just threw it on the shelf behind him, which didn't seem like, you know, very receptive when you get a gift. And he said, yes, he said, very nice. Then he said, when I was a boy, he said, a young boy, he said, my father's friend, his father was in textiles, right? He said his friend, he dealt with these chadars exclusively. He said, and every year I would get one. So he just like, just smashed this whole fantasy that Guru Kripa had had. And so there was no question of what was supposed to happen next was, give me your old one, Prabhupada, you know, prasadam. So it just got dropped. And me, I never asked Prabhupada for anything. He gave me lots of things, a lot of gifts, a lot of clothing, and so many things. But I decided, you know, at that time I got this seed, the desire seed. You know, we talk about desire seeds? Like that was one I never even imagined it. And all of a sudden, I just was lusting for Prabhupada's chadar. I thought, I have to get this chadar because someone else wanted it. So I thought, no, I need it. So I hatched a plan that took a long time. So Prabhupada was here in Mayapur, which 40 years later, it hasn't changed much for me. I don't know how to do anything in Mayapur. If I want something, I don't know who to go to. I don't know anything about Navadvip. I'm just lost. You know, I came here January 1st, and Mayapur, it's so big, and there's so many people that it's a good place to be invisible, Mayapur. You can be here, and no one will know you're here, you know, unless you're a Vaisesika. Everybody knows. And that it was even more so back then, you know. So I waited, and a month later, we were in Vrindavan for the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir. So Vrindavan, just like it is for me today, like I know my way around, I know people, if I need something done, I know how to get it done, and I know who I can talk to, so many things. So there, my person I talked to was Palika, my god sister, who cooked for Prabhupada when he was in India, one of the many ladies that cooked for him. So now I was a grahasta, and somehow I had a few rupees on me. So I said, they would go to Delhi once a week to get supplies because Vrindavan was just a little village. There wasn't a lot of things there in Vrindavan at that time, unlike now. And I said, Palika, when next time you go to Delhi, I said, would you get me a chadar? And she says, yeah, no problem. And I said, I want one just like this. I said, I want a gray wool Lohi brand chadar, which was the one Prabhupada was wearing, because I thought this was the key, you know, to get his chadar. And she said, okay. And it wasn't expensive at that time, you know, maybe $5, $10 or something. And she came back with it. Now, this is a Krishna Balaram in Prabhupada's sitting room. She came back and she gives it to me. So now I had this brand new chadar that looked just like Prabhupada's chadar, but it was new instead of 5, 6 years old. And I was very
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman.